I think what I look like right now, I could fit into this movie.
Oh,
I got Pink Floyd, and
I probably wouldn't make it very far. I'm not gonna lie.
I think I fit in this world of beard and Pink Floyd and psychedelic music and all that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I know. I just after watching the film that we're going to talk about today, Mandy. I just wanted to go play some heavy metal, and then I realized that I have no abilities with any musical instruments. I can shout into the void pretty well, but that's about as far as I can get. So, that's what we're talking about today is 2018's Mandy from Panos Cosmatos, his second feature film.
Yeah.
I think it's 8 years between the first and the second, so he's definitely been ruminating on this idea.
Marinating on this, yeah. When you have Nicolas Cage in it, and he's the same one.
That's fair.
You're going to see some hard stuff.
It really boils down to Nicolas Cage having a great year in 2018 as well. This film and Mom and Dad, which he did a very good job at being Nicolas Cage. And then, of course, his two voice roles, finally getting to play Superman in the Teen Titans movie and appearing as Noir Spider-Man in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. 2018 was a good year to be Nicolas Cage. This film opened up his year at the film festivals in January, and so we are very excited to talk about it with you today. Kyle and Nick on Film, Mandy. Welcome back to Kyle and Nick on Film. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, where I interview local independent filmmakers from around the Twin Cities local area and international too. Today we're going to talk about Mandy, a psychedelic horror. And I always pitch this idea that it's Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds and Chainsaws.
Fair enough. Well, for me, it was interesting because, again, last night was the first time I'd watched this film. I'd been wanting to see it for a while. Everybody who I'd talked to, and this was on people's top 10 list, which is not an easy thing for horror films to do, especially with some of the people I've read that don't like horror movies putting this on their top 10 list of the year it came out.
Personally, I put it on our show, I put it at number 5, which is a little high, but I just liked there was something new. It was something I've never seen before, even though it borrows a lot of other films, but this is something completely new.
Mandy is proof that it's not always the story you tell, but how you tell it. Because the story itself is not all that... insane. Nic Cage is the star of the film. Red, his relationship, of course, with Mandy, played by Andrea Riseborough, and they're basically in love. It's 1983. They're in love. They're kind of living their own life, And then she gets kidnapped by a creepy cult of a couple of people that have a Jeremiah Sand who is infatuated with her. There's something about her that gets him, and Red has to basically he's going to try and get vengeance for this kidnapping and try to right the wrongs. And I think it's very captivating in that way where it's again the story that's being told isn't as unique, but it's the way it's being done.
Yes. So I have a theory about why the cult leader Linus Roach actually marvelous in this. He's going way beyond his typecasting.
He's very far away from Batman Begins' Bruce Wayne's father.
He was Thomas Wayne in Batman Begins, and then and a little later we see Richard Brake, who was Joe Chill, who kills Thomas Wayne in Batman Begins. He's another actor that was in the movie. But I think that a theme that why he was infatuated with Mandy, why that cult leader won, is she almost looks like him. I think he's such a narcissist.
There's a moment in the film where he's talking to her and the screen flexes between her face and his face a little bit. It's done very eerily and very well done. Andrea Riseborough is a very beautiful person, but she's, she kind of gets those Tilda Swinton roles where it's like she's beautiful, but they put her in this place of unique beauty. Right. And I think especially giving her that scar on her face.
Which they don't talk about. They don't talk
about at all. And the way that she's always kind of buttoned up with these giant glasses, and she spends a lot of time at home. She works in a job where she doesn't have to be all well done and everything like that too. There's something about her that's unique.
And I think, and I play my theory that he's such a narcissist and all me, that he actually sees a little bit of himself, of an appearance to her. Andrea, she plays this very much like a doe, like a deer. In fact, she sees a deer, a dead deer in the park, but very much like she's going to be sacrificed. I mean, it gives that perception like she's going to go to the altar.
Yeah, and let's talk about Mandy as a device and a character, because I think she's not given a ton of dialogue with which to go on, but we get this great story about birds in her childhood. Yeah. And we find out she's a very pure soul. I mean, she is the good in the world, if you will. Yeah. She's the only really good being that stays good from beginning to end in this film. As we see Red, his journey into madness, darkness, whatever he's really going through as the film breaks on, he is doing that for the good that is Mandy. Like he's trying to get vengeance upon what has happened to her. I think she's wonderful in this movie. I think she's a very
for the
good
slights of what you see from her. So yeah, I kind of they talk about that sometimes in acting classes when you assign an animal to your characters, and I think Mandy's more like a deer or a doe, and then obviously Red Miller. Played by Nic Cage is obviously assigning like a wolf.
Yeah, I would see a tiger because of his tiger shirt.
Yeah.
There's that great sequence where he's talking to the chemist, and I'm not even entirely sure if the tiger's actually there or if it's just a personification of him being caged and being uncaged, at that moment. He's very animalistic, but again, like we don't see that when his life is good. He's very, normal, right? But then like there's something that just brings him out, and it's this horrifying.
The hair's gonna start standing up, and he's gonna go through this whole crucible to get the building. He's building himself up to what he has to be.
Yeah.
I also want to talk about is this thing. You'll see it throughout the whole movie. There's a certain arch, or like temples. In fact, even when Red comes in contact with Mandy for the first time, there's a certain play of arching and hierarchy throughout this whole movie that you'll see throughout the movie. There's this constant arch projected in the movie.
Yeah, and it's almost like like a centralized light in the center shining down, kind of giving that homestead, if you will, or maybe an inversion of that. I really love the visual sense that Panos Cosmatos does in this film. There's nothing in this movie that looks like it could be in any other movie.
No,
and I think that's really unique. It's from beginning to end. It's a fever dream. It reminded me a lot of like elements of Heavy Metal, of course, where we get that with like the animated sequences as Red is dreaming of these like far out fantasy world moments with Mandy and like her caring for these animals, and we even get like a very, very keyed in Heavy Metal reference with that green orb that she pulls out there.
Right. Yes, that crow. But yeah, to film just basically a truck driving down the woods and make it so foreboding without saying anything. It's just a truck driving in the woods. It is. There's certain elements of foreboding. Like throughout even the movie, even when it's quiet, there's some obviously foreboding. Even though she's sitting there reading a book in her home in comfort, there's the music's playing, and then the background way it's shot is there's this, something's gonna go wrong. Yeah,
the first hour of the film is a lot of build-up. It's a lot of setup, very slow, very methodical. Yeah. It feels like two films in a sense because of the speed at which it develops at the beginning. But even with the very slow build-up and very slow exposition of what's going on, it always feels like something's happening, even when there's not a whole lot happening. Like she's reading the book, and we're just captivated in this paragraph of this book she's reading, even though it's, it's a very much classic fantasy dime store novel.
You get that a lot with Tarkovsky, but this is a horror movie, and there's a lot of borrowing from Tarkovsky of scenes that look like they're nothing to it, but you interpret it differently. Yes. Yeah, very much like this could be a psychedelic horror Tarkovsky.
Yeah, I think it's well edited in a sense. Like I love that it kind of has this chapter style to it. It begins with the Shadow Mountains, and then we learn of the Children of the New Dawn, but we get these beautiful title cards. That's like they stepped out of like 1980s paperback used bookstore.
Like inserted title.
And we don't even get the title of the movie, Mandy, doesn't appear on screen until an hour and 15 minutes in. Yeah. Like I've never seen anything like that where the film is less concerned with telling you what's going on.
And by the way, what you're watching is, man. Yeah. There's like animations peppered into it. There's definitely, and you talk about the editing. It's not like horror movies always feel like they have to do a slice cut, like a knife. Here, it's soft, dissolved.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments where it like there's even there's a moment in the film where Nicolas Cage is tied up. And definitely in a lot of pain. He's got barbed wire around his arms, and he's really suffering. There's a moment where we fade out with him, and then we come right back in. We fade back in on him in the exact same position. And it's a moment where they're kind of telling you that time has passed, but it's not done in a sequence. It's not done in a painful way. It's like he's just there, right? And you're kind of living with him for that moment.
We always talk about in film theory, if you take a film class, how time is irrelevant in a movie, and this has that component that time even is not really a part of it. We don't even know if it's summer, fall, or winter. The seasons are kind of, we don't know if it's a duration of a day, hour, week, or whatever, or how long he's been there in 5 minutes to 5 hours. So the interpretation of time is very subjective.
Yeah, and going into that is kind of interesting because I was watching some interviews with Cosmatos as he talked about making the film. Of course, his father was George A. Cosmatos, who did Tombstone, First Blood Part 2, did a Rambo film. I mean, he even worked on some of these as like camera and like background stuff. He said that 1983, which the film is set, as well as his previous film, Beyond the Black Rainbow, was set in 1983, and that was a personification of like the most dreamlike quality of his youth. Because he wasn't allowed to watch a lot of these horror films that he wanted to. So he'd go into the video store, he'd look at the front, and he'd read the description and just kind of imagined how it would play out. And so it had a very like fantasy, dreamlike quality. So it's unique in that way, in that it means more to him that the film is set in 1983. It's his version of 1983, which is a dreamlike visual.
But it's highly subjective. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, right, you're right. What the heck does 44 mean? I don't know. So
I did a lot of thinking about it, because I was like, is it some sort of reference to like president or something like that? I was like looking through that thing. I thought there's a theory out there that it's based on the the number 44 character from the Mark Twain. Mark Twain wrote his last unfinished work. There was a character named 44 who kind of was like righting wrongs in the world. There's references to that perhaps. It could be anything really, and I think this is one of those movies where like it's almost Lynchian in that it means something to the director, but it doesn't really mean a whole lot to us. Yeah, the only thing that I took away from it is that it's his favorite shirt. It's the shirt he was wearing when he met his beloved. It's the shirt she's wearing when she's taken. The shirt has passed a lot of milestones in his life, good and bad. That's why it's his favorite shirt, I guess.
I'm going to say naming characters is so important, and I love every character's name in this movie. They fit so well. I mean, even the cult leader, Jeremiah Sand, and how do you make a mirror with sand? But sand doesn't really go with anything. It's a friction to everything involved in life. So it's annoying. So it's a perfect name for him. You don't even get his backstory, but you can kind of develop that he's probably a rock star who got a following, and then...
He reminds me of Manson, because Manson was a failed musician as well, and kind of like took on this personification of he deserved to have his voice heard.
Right, yeah.
He was entitled to it. Jeremiah is very much a male ego. Like, he wants a woman, he's going to take a woman. Like, it's this, like dark side of, like, male egos as they've been risen up and developed.
How does it start is she starts laughing at him.
Yeah, and then he gets mad. Don't laugh at me, don't do any of that. And, like, looking at Mandy as a character, Mandy's shares a name with a character from Eyes Wide Shut, who's a Kubrick film. Kubrick's one of Cosmatos' favorite directors, so I'm sure he took a little bit of that, like this Eyes Wide Shut, especially being like the sexualness of that film being personified as, how Jeremiah views her. Red is an interesting one. I did some research into this, and the opening theme song to the film is called Starless, and it's off of an album from 1974 called Red. Yeah. So we get a lot of a lot of these interesting things that you can dive into and really dig apart with this film. It's really interesting to watch, and I highly suggest, if you're interested in this film and you enjoy watching it, watch some of these interviews with the filmmaker, because he says early on, I think in one of his interviews that he did for a film festival, he said, "I don't make movies for you." He goes, "I make movies that I would want to watch, or make movies for my friends to watch, and I don't really care if you don't like them." Yeah. And I think that's interesting. It may not get him a lot of work in his life, and that might be why we've had 8 years between films, but very much worth watching interviews with him. He's a very captivating director. So
it's a very highly original film, but it's a typical story. We've seen this story before, and you'll see a lot of influences, but you'll know where Panis is coming from all his influences. I highly recommend it. It's a top 5 for me in 2018, and I think it even gets better when you rewatch it, because it's such it is such a punch to you that you can't take all of it first time. And second time viewing, you get to understand what's coming for her, but a lot of it is just like a wow factor. Yeah,
when we finished the movie, my wife turned to me and she goes, "We're probably going to watch this again before Halloween. We're probably going to watch this again." And I was like, okay, good. It was kind of the feeling like we talked about with Zodiac a few weeks ago, where it's like, it's a longer film, but I find myself wanting to revisit it, looking forward to that revisit. Yeah. My big flaws with the film do kind of come down to a few story beats, and they're not overall, I think, things that could have been done better. I think the first hour of the film being so slow and plotting, since the story is so simplistic, I think we could have tightened up that first hour a little bit more. Yeah. And the actual way that the story plays out, including its ending, feels like there's going to be more. and it kind of is a very simple finale. It comes to a very easy ending.
And I do like it. It's one of the best endings of 2018.
It's very captivating, no doubt. Yeah. But there's just moments in the final confrontation, I think, where I felt it was going to be bigger. Like it was going to mean more tactically. Things are a little bit easy for Red. Maybe that's because he's drugged up. Who knows? He's kind of
very jacked up, man.
He's kind of passed through the realm of humanity at that point. But absolutely amazing film. I'm really upset with myself that I've missed 2 years of my life where I could be thinking of this movie every day. But absolutely enjoyable, and I cannot wait to review it.
I dare anybody to eat mac and cheese as soon as they're done finishing seeing this movie.
Oh, I was thinking about buying my first cheddar goblin box right as soon as we're done. And real quick, before we end this episode, the cheddar goblin, that was an insane fake infomercial, and it was something that I've heard about this thing.
Yeah.
Since the movie came out. I thought it was going to have a bigger impact on the film. Turns out it's just an Adult Swim director who got to make something funny and put it on the film.
But it's definitely a play of the 80s of every product had to have like a little mascot for kids, in the 80s. We just got bombarded with it. So,
oh, yeah.
And of course they're making fun
but
of it.
Without a doubt, if there was a cheddar goblin macaroni and cheese in my youth, I probably would have consumed it on the regular. I'm kind of hungry just thinking about it. So that's our thoughts on Mandy, guys. We want to know what you guys think about it. Again, this film is very popular with kind of a certain sect of underground horror fans and heavy metal fans and that kind of stuff. But I think it's accessible in a lot of ways as long as you're interested in that kind of movie, like horror films in general. You'll like this.
And movie. I haven't seen the typical difficult downscale yet. A lot of movies get a lot of high praise. Like Hereditary got a lot of praise, and immediately, and then now people are like, this movie has stayed high praise, and I really heard it, and nobody give it really thinking about it, giving a bad review.
I think that's because it doesn't lie to you. Like the film is what it is. The trailer is what the movie is. Yeah. What people tell you it is what the movie is. Whereas you get a film like Hereditary it's more about the existential dread of the film. But that trailer sells a much more bombastic movie. Lots of horror films that have been popular recently, the A24s and stuff like that, have not sold in their trailer what the film is. Mandy, that is what the movie is.
And that's typical of every movie that gets awesome reviews. Eventually, a few months later, somebody gives it a downer. Yeah. And this really hasn't got a downer yet.
It hasn't slipped as far as I thought it would. It's still resting at 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I think that's well deserving of the film. But what do you guys think? Have you seen the film yet? Let us know in the comments section below. Drop a like as well. That way we know that you liked our video and our content, and you can come back every single week and find new episodes of Kyle and Nick on Film. We got them dropping every single Monday through the rest of the year and continuing on past that.
Be part of the team.
Yeah. One other thing you guys can do, check out that Patreon, patreon.com/KyleNickOnFilm. Yep. We got tiers starting as low as $1 a month, and some of those tiers even will help you get involved with picking movies with us that we're going to talk about on the show. Yeah. And we love doing that. It's kind of, it's fun to see what you guys want to talk about, because I would sit here and talk any movie with you. So it'd be nice to have someone just pick it for me.
Pick it for us and see what happens, right?
Definitely. And don't forget to subscribe as well. Check that out, because then we'll be here every single week waiting to talk to you. I'm Kyle Goethe from GoetheFilmReviews.com, and this is Nick Palodichuk.
Happy Halloween.